3 sinister true alone at night horrors exposed. Spine-chilling tales of the cursed and haunted Sarah's tires crunched against broken gravel as she pulled into her driveway. Adrenaline slipping away as dread crept in. Another night spent behind the diner's counter. Bright yellow lights flickering above her. Felt like an eternity. Her small town, Maple Grove, had always boasted a picture-perfect charm until the shadows started whispering. "Mommy, there are people outside again." Lily's voice echoed in her mind, high and trembling, like a ghostly chime. The laughter that usually filled their home now lay muted under a shroud of darkness. As the weeks stretched on, Sarah dismissed her daughter's fears, attributing them to stories of horror they used to binge-watch together. She turned to the comforting glow of her porch light, only to spot their neighbor. Gary, the retired sheriff's deputy, now moved like a specter, lurking in doorways and peering through blinds, his gaze cold and probing. Then came the packages. "They'll just be mail," she assured herself until unmarked boxes began to appear, strange symbols painted across crinkly black paper. Each contained items that felt far too personal: a photograph of Lily's secret bedtime plush, Sarah's old diary now torn and yellowed with age. The familiar scent of charred wood and smoke snaked through the air, curling around her stomach. She choked down the rising panic, but it festered like a splinter in her brain. More families seemed to evaporate into thin air, empty homes glaring with forsaken shutters, their absence echoing an unspoken curse hovering over Maple Grove. Sitting behind the counter at the diner, laughter and chatter grew thin. Her co-workers shared fleeting glances, but the camaraderie felt disrupted. It was as if everyone knew something she didn't. The sheriff's indifference only reinforced this disquiet. His once revered reputation now faded into suspicion. Fear spread like plague, festering as she watched her daughter's innocence wither. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen." Now let's continue. As her shift grimly wound down, Sarah's gut twisted. Pulling into the driveway, the chill ran deeper as her headlights danced across twisted silhouettes formed by the streetlight. The door creaked as she stepped inside, an icy draft slipping past her, curling around her spine. Lily stood on the porch, wide-eyed, pointing tremulously at the latest package, an ominous box decorated with symbols that vibrated on the edge of her recognition. Each step toward that porch felt like trudging through time. Pounding heartbeats filled her ears, drowning out any rational thought. What waited beneath that dark wrapping? Was this an elaborate prank or some malevolent force coaxing her deeper into a rabbit hole of paranoia? The oppressive quiet pressed against her, leaving her feeling very small against the teetering weight of the unknown. Taste the dread on her tongue. Is danger merely in her mind, or lurking just outside their door? Each creak of the house whispered threats, and a sense of impending doom clawed at her heart as she braced for what lay beyond in this cursed town, on the cusp of unveiling horrors that lingered just outside. Would they unearth the truth, or would it consume them before the dawn? The box sat on the porch like a predator, waiting for its moment. Sarah tried to take a steadying breath, but it caught in her throat. Lily's tiny finger trembled, still pointing at the package, and Sarah could feel the child's fear wrapping around her like a spider's web, sticky and suffocating. "What is it?" Lily whispered, her wide eyes reflecting both curiosity and dread. The porch creaked ominously beneath Sarah's feet as she kneeled to inspect the box closer. The symbols painted on it seemed to shimmer. More than just mere paint, they felt alive, pulsating with some dark energy that beckoned her to reach out. She shook her head, fighting against the instinct that compelled her to break the seal. "No, it's probably nothing," she murmured, but the words felt hollow. The impending storm of unease surged within her. Her phone buzzed in her pocket, jolting her from her thoughts. She pulled it out, only to find an unsettling message from an unknown number. It read, "We see you. We know you. Stop looking for answers." She felt cold sweat trickle down her spine. Who were we? Whatever menacing force seemed to be lurking in the shadows, it now knew her. "Mommy?" Lily's voice pierced the thick air. "Can we go inside?" She didn't have to be asked twice. With the relentless weight of fear digging into her chest, Sarah grabbed the box and rushed inside, slamming the door behind them. The wood splintered beneath her grip. Let us just lock it," she stammered, fumbling for the deadbolt. Her fingers shook as she secured the latch, the sound echoing like a war drum against the oppressive silence. Lily huddled on the couch, clutching her stuffed rabbit, its button eye glistening under the dim light. "Are we safe here?" The question hung in the air with a suffocating weight. How could she assure her daughter when doubts gnawed at her heart? "We're safe. For now." Fumbling for comfort, Sarah glanced at the coffee table, that cursed box now sitting like a ticking clock between them. Each nauseating tick of time echoed ominously, stirring dread. Lily shuffled closer, her small body trembling beside her mother. "Mommy, you promised you wouldn't let them get us, I know." "Sweetheart." Sarah's voice cracked, straining to hold back the rising terror. But as she looked into the darkness behind the window's deep, cloying shadows that seemed to swirl like thick smoke, a chill washed over her heart. Then came the sound. A faint, spider-like tapping echoed from the window, rhythmic and deliberate. It jolted Sarah to her feet. Was it just the trees brushing against the glass? Or was something out there? "Mommy," Lily whimpered again, pulling the rabbit tighter. "I don't like this," Sarah whispered, silencing her own fear. Creeping toward the window, she pulled the curtains slightly aside. The streetlight flickered, revealing nothing but the empty expanse of their yard. But the tapping continued, drawing her attention back outside. She turned quickly, locking eyes with Lily. "We need to get out of here," she said. Crimson slashed across the window as a shadow swept past, and her heart raced faster than ever. "What's happening?" Lily's voice trembled, barely above a whisper. "Stay here. Don't move." Sarah shot back, her mind racing through escape routes. Frantic seconds bled into an eternity, the fear weaving a tight web around them. Suddenly, the sound of scraping metal sliced through the night. Sarah peered into the darkness again, the outer threat now palpable. With a swift motion, she dove to snatch the box, feeling its primal energy coil tighter in her grasp. As she turned around to grab Lily, a chilling realization sank in. They weren't alone. A shadow glided through the front door, monstrous and indistinct, and it was coming for them. In that fleeting moment, all Sarah could think was what was waiting for them in the depths of the unknown. Would it be deeper than this shadow, beckoning her into its eternal night? Sarah's heart thundered in her chest as the shadow loomed larger. It exuded a menacing aura, its shape ever shifting, like smoke swirling around a flame. For a split second, time halted. The air between them thickened, heavy with anticipation and dread. "Mommy!" Lily's voice burst forth like a fragile glass shattering. The little girl's terror ignited a flame of raw instinct in Sarah. "Lily, stay back." Sarah's voice rose in pitch, teetering on the edge of panic. She clutched the box tighter, its surfaces cold beneath her trembling fingers as if it were breathing alive. The shadow moved, slinking along the walls. It flickered like a candle's flame, retreating and then advancing in a malevolent dance. Darkness curled and shifted, inching closer, weaving through the dim light as it isolated them. Sarah felt corners of her mind unravel, filled with haunting echoes of forgotten fears. She turned to Lily, whose wide eyes mirrored the horror wrapping around them like a vice. "We need to find a way out. Now." With purpose, Sarah darted through the living room towards the back door. Every instinct screamed to run, but the cold chill of the box in her hand pulled her senses back, planting dread deep within. "Mommy, what is happening?" The child's quavering voice tugged at Sarah's heart. A loud crash erupted from the entryway. The front door splintered, giving way to darkness. The shadow surged forward, its form now distinct, gleaming and grotesque. It seemed to hum, an otherworldly sound vibrating through the air, curling around them. They were trapped. There was no escape. "Let us hide," Sarah shouted as she yanked Lily toward the kitchen, past the faint glow of the refrigerator that flickered like a warning sign. But no matter where they turned, the looming darkness clawed at their backs, hot breath racing against their skin. "Under here," Sarah pointed to the table, pushing Lily beneath it, squeezing in next to her. They huddled, hearts pounding like drums in sync. The sound of scraping intensified, echoing off the walls, reverberating in their ears. The shadow began to fill the edges of the kitchen, creeping under the table and pooling around their feet, blackness pressing in. "Why won't it go away?" Lily cried, trembling under the weight of despair. Her stuffed rabbit dangled from her arms, almost swallowed by the encroaching void. "I don't know," Sarah gasped. She pressed her hands against the box, feeling its raw energy pulse as if responding to her fear. "But I won't let it take you." Whispers filled the air, ancient and foreboding. They twisted and turned the atmosphere electric, sending chills spiraling down Sarah's spine. "Answer the call, surrender." With a surge of desperation, she gripped the box as if it held salvation. "We'll figure this out." The words felt hollow and feeble against the echoes of terror. Suddenly, the shadow twisted violently, breaking apart for a brief moment, revealing the door behind it, ajar and beckoning. The whispers faded into a roaring void, making way for a slight breeze that carried the scent of fresh rain. "Mommy!" Lily clutched her mother's arm, wide eyes glistening with a mixture of terror and the flicker of hope. "Okay, we go now," Sarah hissed through clenched teeth, relief flooding through her as she pulled Lily out from under the table. They rushed toward the door, the shadows snapping at their heels like frantic dogs in pursuit. Just as they reached the threshold, the air thickened, pulling at them, clawing them back, threatening to strangle their resolve. "Step out," came a voice deep and unnaturally calm. "You must make the choice." "What choice?" Panic clawed at Sarah's throat, but she pressed forward, not letting it grip her for long. The moment they crossed the threshold, the chaos shifted. They tumbled out into the night, the air feeling different, charged, alive. Yet, the door slammed behind them as if sealing them out of their own home. Breathless and free, they stood, gazing back at the house where shadows twisted in anguish against the windows. "Mommy, what now?" Lily's feet shifted uneasily on the wet grass, the same dread creeping back into her voice. Sarah turned, scanning the darkness surrounding them. "We find help." But a flicker in the corner of her eye snagged her attention. A figure loomed in the darkness, maliciously grinning, waiting, and for a chilling moment, it whispered something that froze Sarah in place. "You can't escape what you've unleashed." What had they really brought into their lives? What darkness was still looming beyond reach? The figure stepped closer, its features indistinct but its grin unnaturally wide, stretching across the darkness like a predator's gleaming teeth. Sarah's heart raced again, panic clawing at her insides. "Lily," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Stay behind me." But the little girl, still clinging to her stuffed rabbit, peeked out from around Sarah's waist, curiosity mingling with fear. The looming figure only widened its grin, the corners of its mouth stretching until it seemed to mock them. What was it? Was it human? Or had they crossed over into a realm they couldn't comprehend? "Let us go," Sarah urged, gripping Lily's hand tighter and backing away. Each step felt like treason against the very ground they stood on, a betrayal that might awaken dormant horrors. They turned and stumbled forward, the lush grass turning slick beneath their feet. As they dashed away from the looming darkness, the whispers returned, curling around them in sinister tones, echoing secrets that chilled Sarah to her bone. "Stay with us. Join us." They were words she could not ignore, whispers that burned into her mind like a cruel incantation meant to ensnare their very souls. "Mommy, I'm scared," Lily cried, her voice small against the overwhelming shadows. "Keep moving, baby," Sarah urged, not even daring to glance back. Her instincts yelled at her to run faster. They sprinted toward the streetlights ahead, each flickering bulb an island of hope in a sea of darkness. But just as they reached the light, it sputtered and dimmed. The oppressive darkness surged back, coiling around them, grasping tightly. It felt sentient, alive, and vengeful for their attempt to escape. "Get back!" Sarah yelled as something like a cold hand grasped at her ankle, forcing her to stumble. She shook her leg violently, but the shadowy tendril didn't relent. "Mommy!" Lily shrieked, her face twisted in fear as she tugged on Sarah's shirt, pulling her back toward the street. Sarah lunged forward, the darkness tightening around her, nearly dragging her down. With sheer desperation, she aimed a kick behind her, feeling a strange, fleeting resistance followed by an eerie hiss. "Run for the park!" Sarah screamed, pointing towards the empty stretch of grass that led into the maze of trees. Maybe there'd be safety in the woods, something to obstruct the malevolent force pursuing them. They darted toward the shadows of the trees, the evening air suddenly colder, pressing against their skin, sending goosebumps rippling down Sarah's arms. The whispers, a chorus of despair, grew louder with every stride they took. "Why doesn't it want us to leave?" Lily sobbed, her legs pumping but trembling with exhaustion. "I don't know, sweetheart. Just keep going." They dashed into the treeline, the suffocating darkness wrapping around them almost instantly. The light from the street lamps faded, swallowed by branches that seemed to reach for them. The sounds of night echoed eerily, the rustle of leaves blending with the whispers. A sudden chill ran down Sarah's spine. Shadows danced in the corner of her vision, flickering just out of sight, but there was no time to focus on what was only hinted in her peripheral. She pushed deeper, into the darkness that felt even more alive, vibrant with pulsing energies that were darker than the night itself. And then, like a specter, a voice broke through the veil of shadows, clear and venomous. "You can run, but you can't hide. It's hungry for you." A jolt ran through Sarah's body, paralyzing her briefly. What did it want from them? Just when she thought they were alone in the forest, an unnatural weight settled around them, filling her lungs with fear and despair. "Mommy!" Lily cried again, her voice quaking in the stillness as if she felt the impending dread strangling the air. "Stay close." Sarah's heart pounded. The tension was suffocating. She glanced to her sides as if expecting to see faceless observers lurking just beyond the reach of moonlight. They were not alone. A low growl reverberated through the trees, primal and raw, sending a wave of terror crashing into Sarah. Their escape was no longer just from the clutches of the shadows, they were being hunted. "What do we do?" Lily whimpered, her tiny fingers clutching Sarah's hand, shaking. Firmly, Sarah looked around, spotting a faint, flickering light beyond the trees. Another streetlight? Hope surged through her veins. "We have to reach that light. We have to." A rustle, then silence. They both turned at once. It was closer now, the growls morphing into a sinister laughter that echoed through the woods, twisting and warping into something unrecognizable. The forest began to close in on them, branches wrapping around Sarah's heart, pulling her deeper into despair. The grinning shadow promised it wasn't over yet. "Go!" Sarah shouted, bolting deeper into the dark. But the forest felt alive, almost claustrophobic, swallowing them whole. As they pushed onward, the light flickered ahead, just within reach if they could reach it. But something shifted. The darkness roiled and curled, preparing for one final show of its power. And then, from her pocket, the box throbbed violently, the last thing Sarah expected. What had she awakened? What had she truly brought into their lives? The chase was on, and the end felt closer than ever, with the shadows surely closing in. What would happen next? Was the light a sanctuary, or merely a trap? The tension in the air thickened, pressing against Sarah's chest, suffocating her. The light flickered insistently, as if urging them forward, yet every instinct screamed that it was a trap. The shadows writhed around them, and the growl pulsated closer now, hungry. "Mommy, I don't want to go." Lily's voice trembled, bravely clinging to the edges of her courage. But fear had a grip on them both. "Just hold my hand. We can do this together," Sarah urged, desperately trying to instill a sense of belief, a glimmer of hope amidst overwhelming despair. They ran, the crunch of leaves and twigs underfoot echoing like drums announcing their doom. Suddenly, a blinding flash illuminated the treetops, and Sarah froze in her tracks. The light from the street lamp surged back to life, casting long, eerie shadows, stretching like skeletal hands around them. But it felt wrong. This wasn't reassurance. It was a spotlight directing attention to their plight, a siren calling them closer. "Mommy, look!" Lily pointed, tears sparkling under the ghostly glow. Sarah squinted into the brightness. At the edge of the clearing, she saw a figure, almost solidified by the light, cloaked in darkness, a featureless silhouette, save for those ghastly, stretched lips that twisted into an endless grin. "Lily, don't look!" Sarah shouted, instinctively turning her daughter away. But it was too late. The figure's gaze pierced through the gloom, an unseen force rendering them paralyzed. The whispers rose to a fervor, swirling like a tempest, drawing them toward that curiosity, toward the being that thrived on their fears. "They know our fears," Sarah breathed, shaking her head as if to dispel the notion. "We need to fight this." It lunged. Everything seemed to happen in slow motion. The shadows launched forward, tendrils of darkness that reached and clawed at them. Sarah grabbed Lily and pulled her close, instinct consuming her. She felt the cold wrap around her ankles, pulling her down, dragging her into a chasm of despair. With a feral scream, she fought back, her mind racing. "We can't get caught." Adrenaline surged through her veins, igniting a primal instinct. She kicked at the shadows, striking out violently, defiance coursing in her movements. The grip faltered momentarily, and they broke free, bursting into the clearing. Together, they stumbled toward the sanctuary of the light, hearts pounding, breaths ragged. But just as the warmth surrounded them, an unexpected silence fell. The laughter that echoed in their ears cut off, leaving behind a haunting stillness that thrummed deeply. Sarah's heart thudded in her ears, the emptiness echoing louder than the growls had. What happened? Lily's voice wavered, uncertainty creeping in. Sarah looked around. The figure had vanished, but dread crawled up her spine. Something was lurking just beyond their vision, waiting, biding its time. They were not safe. The shadows still pulsed around them, like a living entity, coiling and uncoiling, waiting to make its next move. The box in Sarah's pocket throbbed again, sending a shockwave through her. It was alive even now. She pulled it out, the strange symbols glowing faintly in the flickering light. What had she awakened? What was contained within this object that had seemingly drawn them into a nightmare? "Mommy, I don't like this place," Lily said quietly, shivering. "We'll get out, I promise," Sarah started. But the words felt hollow. The moment hung heavy in the air, breathless as the shadows resumed their whispers, now smooth and seductive. "Join us. Stay with us." Unease slithered into Sarah's chest, realizing with dread once more that escaping wasn't enough. Something deeper awaited them. Then came the unmistakable crack of twigs behind them, a sound that sent a jolt of ice through Sarah's heart. She turned slowly, dread pooling in her stomach. "Run!" she screamed, her heart pounding furiously as she yanked Lily back into the trees. But they were not alone anymore. What had they unleashed? With the relentless darkness and those malevolent whispers growing louder. Behind them, the race for survival escalated, both unaware that something far worse than shadows stalked them in the moonlit haze. What other horrors awaited them in the dark? And how could they hope to escape it all? Branches clawed at Sarah's arms as they plunged deeper into the thicket. The shadows danced around them, angry and relentless. With every step, thorns raked across her skin, drawing thin lines of blood that trickled down her wrist. "Mommy!" Lily gasped between ragged breaths. The girl's grip tightened, her small hand trembling fiercely in Sarah's. "What's happening? What's chasing us?" "I don't know," Sarah replied, half lying as panic surged through her veins. She glanced behind them, the oppressive darkness now spilling closer, insidiously whispering their names, teasing their deepest fears. We just need to keep moving. But every stride felt heavier, as if the shadows were weighing them down, stealing their strength. The box in her pocket pulsed like a heartbeat, sending jolts of heat through her body. Suddenly, a low, guttural roar ripped through the air, slicing through the thick silence. The sound echoed, reverberating against the trees, and Sarah stumbled forward. Faster! She urged Lily, and they surged ahead, legs pumping wildly. Their feet pounded against the damp ground, but it was the growl that spurred them, a relentless reminder of how close death felt. With every breath, she could taste the metallic tang of fear on her tongue. They burst into a small clearing. It was eerily quiet, the air thick with an unsettling energy. Sarah spun around, scanning their surroundings. Trees loomed like sentinels watching, waiting. Where are we? Lily's voice was a fearful whisper. The little girl's eyes darted, searching every corner for anything that might offer safety. I don't know, Sarah replied, her voice shaking. The darkness seemed to pulse around them like a living thing. But we need to. Before she could finish, the shadows ripped apart as a grotesque figure emerged. It stepped out of the darkness, its elongated limbs moving with a sickening grace. Its grin widened, razor-sharp teeth shining in the scant light. No, Sarah stepped back, pulling Lily behind her. Don't look at it. Don't look. But it was too late. Lily froze, eyes wide with terror, as the creature's gaze locked onto hers. It leaned closer, its breath a foul stench that darkened the air. The whispers swelled again, drowning Sarah's cries. Join us, become one with the dark, mommy. Lily's voice quavered as she dropped Sarah's hand. The shadows wove tendrils through the air, wrapping around her, pulling her toward the figure. Lily! Sarah lunged forward, panic surging, but the shadows grew thicker. They seemed to throb, almost alive, holding her back. Fight it, sweetheart. Come back to me. Lily's gaze turned glassy as she struggled against the shadows. Mommy, I can't, she whimpered, the pull of the darkness overpowering her will. Stay with me, Sarah screamed, pushing against the unseen force. She strained to reach her daughter, her heart splintering at the sight of the child being swallowed by the shadow. Then, a low rumble echoed from her pocket. The box flared to life, pulsing with an eerie light that illuminated the creature just long enough for Sarah to catch a glimmer of weakness in its form. Lily, take my hand. She extended her arm, filled with a desperate hope. That flicker of resistance ignited something in Lily. Mommy! With sheer will, she lunged forward, grasping her mother's outstretched hand. The darkness screamed around them, but Sarah held on tight, pulling Lily closer, channeling every ounce of energy into breaking the chains of fear. The ground shook beneath them, and suddenly a blinding burst of light enveloped them, forcing the shadows into retreat. But the creature lingered, shrieking in agony, its form flickering like a dying flame. Run! Sarah yelled, ripping through the light, driven by the fear that the darkness would strike back. The woods seemed to open up, revealing a narrow path snaking toward a glimmer of hope, a faint light in the distance. But as they dashed forward, the whispers morphed into a sinister laughter, echoing all around. You can't escape. The darkness always returns. Heartbeat hammering in her chest, Sarah pressed on, hand clenched around Lily's as dread gnawed at her insides. They couldn't stop. They wouldn't let it win. But what if this was only the beginning? As they raced toward the light, something else stirred in the woods, something darker, waiting to make its move. Branches thrashed against Sarah's legs as they hurtled down the path, the dim light in the distance flickering like a dying star. With every frantic step, the earth trembled, an ominous rhythm that synced with the pounding of her heart. Lily's small, feverish breaths beside her echoed like painful memories that clawed at Sarah's resolve. Keep running, Lily. Just a little more. The words tumbled out of her mouth, barely coherent amidst the chaos. But the path was shifting, twisting like a snake, distorting her perceptions. Mommy, I'm scared, Lily whimpered. The innocence in her voice stoked the flames of Sarah's anxiety, each syllable slicing into her resolve. The memories of that creature surged back, its smile stretching unnaturally wide, teeth glistening. Fear clawed at her throat as the shadows behind them writhed, eager to reclaim what they had lost. The pulse of the box surged hot against her hip, every beat matching the terror in her heart. With a deep breath, she turned to look back, her instincts screaming against the act. A scuttling form raced through the underbrush, twisted branches and vines snapping under its weight. It was the creature, its movements fluid, horrifyingly beautiful yet grotesque. It ducked behind trees, its eyes glowing like lanterns in the dark, eyes that promised nightmares if caught. Faster! Sarah shouted, adrenaline ripping through her body. She pulled Lily along, who stumbled behind her, legs heavier than lead. Panic seized her with every glance back, the shadows whispering their chilling entreaties, echoing promises of despair, suffocation, and darkness. As they drew closer to the light, it flickered more intensely, revealing the path ahead. It was a gateway of sorts, glowing like a beacon amid the terror. But with the light came a creeping unease. What lay ahead? Hope or another trap? "Mommy, my legs hurt," Lily cried, tears spilling down her cheeks. "I know, sweetheart, just hold on." Then the box in her pocket radiated a sharp heat, almost burning her skin. She fumbled to pull it out, hands shaking, and as she opened it, a swirling mist burst from within, illuminating their surroundings in an otherworldly glow. But even as the mist spread, the darkness recoiled, growls morphing into a cacophony of tormented screams. The ground beneath them heaved, and roots snaked upward, clawing at their feet like eager hands. "Not now. We need to go." Sarah yanked Lily forward, feet pounding. The mist wrapped around them, blinding her momentarily before revealing something unexpected. A figure stood at the light ahead, arms wide, welcoming yet sinister. It wore a tattered cloak, its face obscured in shadows. "Welcome, lost ones," it hissed, voice slithering through the air. "No!" Sarah screamed, feeling the edges of her mind fray. The ground beneath her shook violently, and the mist flickered warningly, urging her to reconsider. But where could they go? The darkness was reconciliating, wrapping around them like a suffocating blanket, every heartbeat pulsing in terrifying rhythm. The figure beckoned again, a sinister lure. "Join us. We can protect you." Gripping Lily's hand tight, Sarah felt the weight of the box become unbearable. "Fight it, Lily." She tore her gaze from the figure, forcing herself to look only ahead, the light pulsating stronger as it threatened to flicker out. As they dashed forward, everything shifted. A loud crack split the bulk of the shadows, and the figure's face twisted grotesquely, revealing not a savior but a monster in disguise. From the corners of the mist, dark shapes began to swirl, multiplying into dozens of twisted forms, creeping closer. Screaming seemed futile, but Sarah felt panic hook into her chest. "Together we can make it," she shouted, and they plunged toward the light, even as the shadows screamed for their return. Just then, the ground trembled beneath Sarah's feet, and everything shuddered. Something was rising. In the fading light, shadows surged, battling the mist, but with a dizzying flash, the forest split open beneath them. What waited beneath the earth? Was it salvation or doom? The ground roared. A fearsome growl echoed beneath Sarah's feet as fissures cracked through the soil. It was more than just a rumble. It was as if something colossal stirred, awakening from a long dormancy to reclaim its territory. She felt the very essence of the earth breathe against her, hot and feverish, urging her to flee. "Mommy!" Lily screamed, clutching her hand tighter, fingers turning icy. "Run!" Sarah gasped. They sprinted towards the pulsating light, its glow like a dying ember, each step a desperate plea for safety. But the ground twisted beneath them, dragging them closer to the maw of darkness that now gaped wide, ready to devour them whole. "Don't look back," Sarah shouted, adrenaline sharp as glass. The creature was behind them. She could feel its hungry gaze, its jagged breath fanning the nape of her neck, and every instinct screamed with panic. The darkness shimmered around their ankles, a suffocating quilt of despair threatening to seal them away. "Mommy, I can't," Lily cried. Her voice, once a melody of innocence, now echoed heart-wrenching agony. Sarah felt the pull of despair claw at her. She could feel Lily's strength fading with every passing moment. They were nearing the light, but it pulsed and flickered ominously, like a candle in an unforgiving storm. Relief surged within her, but as she closed in, the shadows shifted uneasily. "Please, let it be real," Sarah murmured, disbelief flooding her heart like ice water. But as they entered the glow, she was hit with a wave of a wrongness that twisted her stomach. The figure in the light morphed, further features glitched in and out of existence, an unpredictable mask that played games with her mind. "Welcome," it hissed, echoing a cruel introduction. "Come closer, and we shall be one." But there was no invitation in its voice, only mockery layered with darkness. Gritting her teeth, Sarah pushed forward, fighting against the urge to succumb to the figure's poisonous allure. But with every step, her vision blurred, hallucinations creeping at the edges. Ghostly faces forming with anguished expressions, their eyes wide, pleading for release. Saying defensive mantras in her head, she stumbled forward in sheer defiance. "Almost there, Lily, just keep holding on," she urged, but the shadows exploded around them, howling in tortured rage. From beneath the churning soil, something clawed upward, a giant, twisted arm, gnarled as ancient roots, shot from the ground, curling like a winning vine to grasp at them. It snagged her ankle, pulling her off balance. Fear exploded in her chest as she nearly fell, yanking Lily to keep her upright. The ground split again, yawning wide, and Sarah was sure they'd plummet into a pit of endless night. The box at her hip seared hot against her skin, demanding to be opened. Panic boiled in her throat. She hesitated. The shadows shrieked, frantically crawling toward them as the figure in the light continued to beckon, hypnotically. With a scream, she threw the box open. The mist exploded outward, shimmering against the newly uncovered ramp of darkness, swirling like 1,000 trapped souls. "No!" the figure screeched, its delicate masquerade shattered. The darkness spiraled, suddenly terrified of the light. "Now, Lily!" Sarah cried, pulling her daughter close to her chest as the arms fought against the force of the mist. They catapulted themselves into the fury of penetrating light. The shadows recoiled, howling in anguish, but the ground trembled again, buckling beneath the weight of unseen horrors. "Mommy, what is happening?" She felt Lily's voice, tiny and fragile. "I don't know, sweetheart. Just hold on." It felt like the earth was fracturing underfoot, about to swallow them whole, a feast waiting patiently for the frantic. And then, right above them, light split apart, opening a door into the unknown. What lay on the other side? Was it a refuge, or a descent into the darkest depths of her nightmares? They hurtled through the light, the world around them shifting like a broken kaleidoscope. Sarah's heart raced, confusion wrestling with the hope of escape. The warmth of the glowing chamber enveloped them, yet the shadows lurked just beyond, whispers clawing at her sanity. "Mommy, where are we?" Lily's voice trembled. Sarah glanced around, her breath hitching. They stood on a vast expanse of white, a stark contrast to the chaos that had just engulfed them. But it felt wrong. The brightness was too sharp, the air too still. She shivered, goosebumps prickling her skin. Before them, symbols shimmered on the ground, pulsating like a heartbeat. She took a cautious step forward. The sensation of the floor beneath them felt alive, energy coursing through it like a predator waiting to spring. "Stay close," Sarah shouted, pulling Lily closer until their bodies pressed tightly together, as if their combined warmth could fend off the dread creeping back into her heart. The light flickered above their heads, and shadows danced just outside their field of vision. It was still there, whatever that thing was. She could feel it lurking, watching. The air shifted, heavy with the weight of dread. "Mommy, Lily, keep your eyes on me. Don't look anywhere else." But how could she ignore the shapes drifting at the corners of her consciousness? It was maddening. They bobbed and weaved, glimpses of twisted faces appearing before vanishing into the white. But now it was different. The tormented faces seemed almost peaceful, desperate to show her something important. What do they want? Sarah uttered, more to herself than to Lily. And then she felt it, a rush of cold that slithered down her spine, whispering promises of dark secrets. The ground trembled beneath her feet as the symbols began to rearrange themselves in a dizzying spiral. Panic gripped her. She had to make sense of this, had to figure out how to escape. Come on, she urged, dragging Lily along, sprinting towards the closest symbol. As she reached it, a hand reached from the light, slender and translucent. No, she shrieked, yanking Lily away. The hand slowly retreated, leaving a glow that flickered with each pulse, like a heartbeat. Sarah felt compelled to touch it, but deep inside, a bone-chilling instinct screamed that everything here was a lie, a trap set to ensnare the unwary. Lily whimpered, and Sarah's heart ached. Turning back, she didn't know which way to go. Each sand grain of a moment ticked by like a lifetime, dread filling her lungs. The darkness flickered again, and the whisper grew louder. Join us, the words wrapped around her mind, seducing her with promises of safety. She clutched the box tightly, struggling against the attraction, aware that the shadows were tightening their grip. Mommy, please, I'm scared. Lily sobbed. Listen to me, Lily. We're not giving in. Sarah shouted, clenching her fists while the whisper droned on. It was a soft melody, threading through the chaos and promising all that was lost could be regained. But only if they surrendered. Suddenly, the symbols on the ground exploded in a flash of light, disorienting her completely. Sarah stumbled, catching herself just before she fell. Look, Mommy, Lily pointed, wide-eyed. There, hovering just above the ground, was a door made of pure light, swirling with vibrant colors, dancing as if alive. Is it real? Sarah whispered, inching toward it. Mommy, it has to be. Lily shouted, hope slipping back as terror bubbled anew within Sarah. But then, shadows crept towards them, cutting off their escape. Dark, swirling mists poured from the edges, howling with despair, furious at their defiance. Run, Lily! Sarah yelled again, determination igniting within her as she surged forward, dragging her daughter with her, hoping against everything that the door was their salvation. As they approached, the whispers grew frantic, the shadows writhing, trying to ensnare them, dragging despair into every step they took. Trust me, Sarah gasped, their feet pounding louder than the howls of darkness. But just as they reached the threshold, a bone-chilling voice erupted from the swirling shadows behind them. You cannot escape your fate, as the door flickered, about to engulf them. For just a heartbeat, Sarah hesitated. What awaited them on the other side? Would it be freedom or the final embrace of darkness? With every ounce of strength pulsing through Sarah's veins, she pushed forward, feeling the light pull them closer, a beacon amidst the encroaching shadows. Each step felt like a tightrope walk over a chasm of despair, every heartbeat echoing the fear that threatened to consume them whole. Mommy, I don't want to go into the light. Lily's voice trembled as they dashed toward the door. Yet behind them, the darkness roared, swelling like a wave ready to crash down. The whispers grew maddening, a cacophony of voices promising power, safety, and a connection to the very shadows that pursued them. No, we want to become part of you, Sarah screamed, instinct urging her to protect her daughter, shield her from this malevolence. She tightened her grip around Lily's hand, every fiber of her being screaming to fight against the suffocating weight of despair. As they neared the threshold, the shadows snapped at their heels, their dark tendrils reaching out, desperately trying to grasp them. The door shimmered, its colors swirling like a tempest. One last push, just a few more steps. She could feel it. Freedom was so close. Jump. With that battle cry, she surged forward, Lily's small frame propelling behind her. They hurled themselves through the last of the darkness and into the radiant light. Time twisted, stretching and fracturing like glass as they burst through. The darkness crashed behind them, a furious wave of shadows thwarted by an impenetrable barrier that shone like stars against the night sky. For a moment, The world around them melted away, replaced by a warmth that encased them like a protective cocoon. Sarah blinked, her heart racing amidst the sudden tranquility. The blinding light hurt her eyes, streaks of gold and silver weaving in and out of her vision. Lily clutched tightly to her side, and when Sarah finally focused, she gasped. They stood in a vast, open field, illuminated by a moon that hung low and heavy in the midnight sky. It was serene, untouched, a stark contrast to the chaos they'd left behind. It felt like a dream stitched together by threads of hope. "Mommy, are we safe?" Lily's small voice broke through the stillness, laced with uncertainty. In her tiny hands, the stuffed rabbit still felt familiar and grounding. A weight lifted from Sarah's heart. "For now, yes, baby," she whispered, kneeling to meet Lily's gaze. "We made it out. We're together." Suddenly, the shadows began to thin and dissolve behind them, a howl rising up only to die out as if the night itself recoiled in defeat. And in that stillness, understanding washed over Sarah. The darkness was not merely a physical manifestation but a reflection of fear and dread that had taken root in their lives. It was relentless, but they had faced it together and they had chosen to fight. "Mommy, look!" Lily pointed to a flickering light off in the distance. Pulsed gently, inviting and warm. As they started to move toward it, Sarah felt a powerful presence beside her, a figure, cloaked in light and shadow. Panic surged in her again. But no, it didn't loom like the previous darkness. "Welcome," it said, voice low and smooth, echoing through the quiet. "You stand at the bridge of choice. Here, together, you can forge a new path." "What do you mean?" Sarah asked, hand instinctively tightening around Lily's as dread threatened to seep back in. "You have faced the darkness. You have chosen to push forward rather than succumb. Now, with your bond, creation or destruction awaits you." Lily tugged on her mother's hand firmly, serious in a way only children could be. "Can we go home?" The being nodded slowly. "Home is what you make of it. Love can either anchor you or create light, but darkness will always tempt you. Do not forget the power of your choice." Then, with a swish of its cloaked arm, the surroundings shifted. Images unfolded like petals beside them, flickering memories of their lives before the chaos began. Moments of laughter, screams of joy, the warmth of connection and love. Sarah turned to Lily, understanding refreshing her heart. It was their life. It was their choices that defined them. "We're going home, Lily. Together," she said, voice steadying as they walked towards the burgeoning light that continued to pulse. They stepped forward, leaving shadows and fear behind. As they crossed into the heart of the light, emotions crashed over them like waves rushing to the shore, pushing out the remnants of doubt and fear. Laughter erupted between them, a sound filled with newfound freedom. In that moment, Sarah recognized the truth: they had faced horrors unimaginable, but together they had found strength. Love conquered darkness, and the shadows would retreat so long as they remained together. And they would never forget that they had the power to choose light, love, and life over fear. The brightness enveloped them, sealing away the curse of Maple Grove, a tree bearing the fruits of resilience. The shadows writhed in retreat beyond the threshold, whispers of surrender fading into the night. "Let us make our new home, Mommy," Lily said, eyes bright with courage. "Absolutely," Sarah smiled, breathing in the sweet air of possibility, ready to embrace whatever came next. But as they stepped away, the wind carried a faint echo of a whisper, almost as if the shadows were still watching, waiting. And in the finality of their tale, one thing was clear: darkness never truly disappears, but neither does the light. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss these exclusive stories that linger just beyond the light. Smash that like button now to show your support and feed the algorithm. I want to hear your reactions and theories about Sarah and Lily's escape. Flood the comments section and let me know what you think. And please, don't wait even one more second, share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. True fans know the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.